Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Demona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurospicy, ordained queerdo with a fascination for all things cycles, symbolism, and patterns.
And I'm Moon Kitty, your queer femme, poly, kitchen witch, and proud geek. Today's topic is liminal spaces, known as the magic of transition.
So much to be said.
So much to be said. And this is kind of an interesting topic because we think of it's not something you think of as a liminal space. We'll get into that definition and everything else, but there's such a power in this. And this is not an area of magic that I hear a lot about. So we wanted to make sure that we brought this one to you as well. So, with that first question being said, what are liminal spaces and why are they important?
Well, it's the spaces in between, of course.
Of
Um,
course.
yes. Liminal spaces are some of my favorite spaces. Like, for example, times of day. To me, twilight between daytime and nighttime
Hmm.
is the evening, the twilight time, or dusk, when the daybreak.
Hmm.
Those are transitional time frames. They're a liminal space. It's fleeting. Liminal space isn't lasting. It's not long. There's not a longevity to it necessarily. It's a temporary state of being, but there's something to be said about being in that transitional energy in that space, where the sun is either coming or going, or the moon is rising or falling, acknowledging the shifting of time. Other liminal spaces would be like places like a threshold where you're leaving one room and passing into another room or
Hmm.
building or clearing, so the threshold between like the forest and the meadow, that's a liminal space. What else do you think of when we say liminal spaces?
I think of any point where you transition. So a crossroads or a fork in the road. So if you're
Mm.
coming up to some place and it's like you're going to make a choice where you're going to go, are you going to go left, right, center, whatever opportunities are presented to yourself. But it's that moment of choice where you decide where you're going to go next. What path are you going to take? What is the next step going to lead? So again, the idea of sunset, where it takes you from that moment between afternoon to dusk, from dusk to twilight, from twilight to deep night. There's that transitional phase, and each there is a different energy to it.
And the crossroads of like literally an
Mhm.
intersection. You
Mhm.
can go to an intersection and be in that threshold, that liminal space, but also, metaphorically, the idea of visiting the crossroads, Hecate at the crossroads, right?
Mhm.
Of your life. Like, how often does the trajectory or plan of our life end up at a crossroads where we are presented options and we have to make a choice or a decision to forego something for the sake of going in one direction or another, in
Mhm.
that sense. And I think the magic of the crossroad of the liminal space is pausing there
Mhm.
and recognizing, instead of just powering through, instead of just being ultra decisive or, incapable of decision. Those are the two extremes, right? You're either just power through it or you can't get through it, but you get stuck there because you can't make a decision. The
Mhm.
idea of stopping and to acknowledge the magic of the
Mhm.
space that you're in where anything is possible
Mhm.
because you haven't made that decision yet, because you haven't started on that next path yet, because you can imagine the possibilities in that space.
Mhm. And it doesn't have to be grandiose, but it can be. But you can also have that magic of the moment. It's like, hey, I don't know where I'm going. Do I want to decide what do I want for dinner tonight? Can also be a liminal kind of space decision. Do I want to go this route? Do I want to go this route? What do I want? Where is that going to take me? It takes me is going to have a completely different set of possibilities with it. So if I'm going and I'm going to make spaghetti, then it means in my case, I take sauce out of the freezer or something else, or I make a batch of sauce. If I make chicken, that's going to be something different. If I make a vegetarian dish, it's going to be something different. There's going to be different pathways that grow off of it. And it's the idea of the multiverse. If I'm going to get a geek for the moment, it's that idea that every choice, every decision you make has infinite possibilities that could map out to something different. And the choice you make, it may prove a wrong one, but if even a wrong one will still teach you something that you need to know going forward. So it's that idea of just having something in between, I think is very cool. Another really good example is even in like a magical setting in like the moon cycles, because moon cycles shift between, again, that moment of full moon, dark moon, and all the phases in between. We already know that those phases have different magical properties in it. But again, that shifting of when it crests the horizon or when it sets on the horizon, the
Hmm.
different liminal magic that happens in those moments in between.
Liminal lunar magic.
Hmm.
I was also going to say your reference of figuring out what you're going to eat for dinner is very kitchen witch of you
Hmm.
to bring up as example. But also, you called it like a little thing, like choosing what's for dinner. I feel like that might actually be the epitome of liminal space, is trying to figure out, especially if you've reached that point of like food apathy, of like, ah, I don't care. I know I need to eat, but I don't know what I want.
Hmm.
I don't want to cook, or, like that whole what to feed yourself sometimes can
Hmm.
be quite a crossroads.
Hmm. So with liminal, that's what liminal space is. Well, what do we mean then by liminal magic?
Well, again, it's acknowledging that there is a magic in that moment of being in the in between and harnessing that magic for, whatever your purpose is. So it could be something as simple as pausing at a threshold as you're entering a building or exiting a building, and just like taking a breath and harnessing that power of, that transitional energy of like, yes, I can shift gears. I can go from this to that. I can transverse into, the possibilities. I can imagine the multiverse. I can imagine what's possible. I think a lot of magic in and of itself
Hmm.
is a liminal
Hmm.
transitional magic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of the magical practices we deal with the liminal, even if we're not acknowledging or consciously recognizing that they're working in the liminal. Because again, almost every bit of magic that we're doing will have some sort of transference of state from what it is to what the intention is going to be. And that transference is in the liminal.
I always think of like the mycelium network as it lives in the liminal, in that space where, it's not like deeply rooted, but it's not visible, fully visible either. We know it's there because every once in a while it has its fruiting bodies called mushrooms that kind of pokes up in one way or another that shows us, hey, guess what? The mycelium networks lives here. But I always think of, you could connect with mushrooms in the liminal
Hmm.
with their intelligence network. But even the internet here can be a liminal space.
Hmm.
I don't know. It was really hard for me as a kid growing up in the 90s. Okay, I'm going to age myself there a little bit, but like trying to wrap my brain around, and I don't even know that I still fully wrap my
Hmm.
brain around how the internet itself works. It just does. It does
Hmm.
work.
Right.
And then there are people out there coding and creating, and it just, all of this information lives in the ether out there, but I'm sure on servers somewhere, but it's still an amazing kind of these little
Electrical
ones and
impulses.
zeros. Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of in its own way kind of a liminal magic too,
Hmm.
because it's not constant. It's a constantly transforming, shifting. And then when we do our magic,
Hmm.
sometimes we're creating liminal space.
Hmm. Or the process of even true create the magic can create liminal space. Think of the idea, if you know that you are in the process of creating a ritual for something. Maybe it's a full moon ritual, or a Sabbath or something along those lines. The ideas that are presenting while you are creating that ritual are delving into the liminal space of being able to understand and think about what you want to do, how it's going to relate to the next thing, where it's going to go. And then when you actually do the ritual, that creates a different kind of liminal space that actually does the working in process. So it's really about, we work in these spaces all the time without having words for it
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's being open to being guided when you're not sure, when you are asking a deity or an ancestor or some sort of elemental spirit or something for guidance, even like the practical idea of divination is
Right.
working in the liminal space. It's really cool.
That one other thing about the magic of the liminal space is getting comfortable with the unknown. A lot of people don't like the unknown. They want to know, they want to understand, they want to make a plan, they want to move forward. But being comfortable with the unknown, getting comfortable with the unknown. It's okay to be uncomfortable with it, but
Hmm.
get comfortable with it. Get into the unknown. But you do have to get into the unknown sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, to experience what the possibilities are. There are possibilities you haven't considered. When we consult the cards, when we ask
Hmm.
tarot for inspiration, sometimes you have a reason, you have something you want to ask, you want some kind of flavor of guidance, whether it's in your relationship or your career or
Hmm.
how you're going to retire or whatever it is, the life of your child or something, you seek some kind of inspiration, inspirited, inspired,
Hmm.
or open to something that you haven't already thought of. Although sometimes tarot also will just tell you things that you already know.
Hmm.
But being open to hearing something that you haven't already thought of, that's a liminal space. New ideas, letting
Hmm.
new ideas come in, letting guidance come in, sitting in that. I know what the problem is, but I don't know what the solution is, and seeking out the possibilities of solutions before you choose one,
Hmm.
or guidance or direction, whatever it is that you're seeking, and letting that come from a spiritual place. Maybe it is coming from you on some subconscious, semi-conscious, higher consciousness level. You have to make space for that to listen to yourself. It could be like really just sitting down and saying, what is it that I'm really thinking?
Hmm.
What am I afraid to say? What is it going on in the background that's kind of like I'm kind of pushing it down? What am I afraid to know?
Hmm. No, I agree. It's the ideas of letting things up and making space for what's coming and being open to the answer is also its own kind of challenge because we want to know the answer. And sometimes the answer that comes to us is not the one we want to hear.
That
And
happens.
that happens a lot, actually.
Yep.
And it's being open to listening to why. And then it's not what I want to hear. So why? Why is it not what I want to hear? Is it something that's A, it's going to cause me more energy to do something? Why is it triggering to me? Why is it causing a negative reaction when you run into those negative setbacks, and what is it drawing inside of you that you need to work on for a shadow work aspect or something else that illuminates part of your psyche that needs attention.
I sometimes know something in my intuition that I don't want to,
Hmm.
like, you kind of know too much and you know that you kind of have to move on from something or let the situation go that's not working. And it's like, but I don't want to, but like, I know I have to. And
Hmm.
it's always that that's kind of a dance with yourself. It can be a dance convincing yourself that on some level you know that this thing isn't sustainable and that you deserve better or that you need to move on, and you have to sometimes get yourself past that. But I don't want
Hmm.
to follow that guidance that you're given. And the best part is that there's always a reason that you're never going to know until you take that time to enter that transitional period.
Hmm. Exactly. Even if it's not, I don't want to, but why is this making me angry?
Mm,
Why is this
yeah.
making me sad? What is the cause of it? Am I angry at my partner because they said something because it caused me to feel neglected or feel like they're not listening or paying attention to me or I'm not getting the attention that I need? Or even on a sad portion is why did the actions of someone else make me sad? And again, what is it triggering in me? What is it relating to? Oh, breaking things down. And you and I know, both being in polyamorous relationships, this is something you have to do on a regular basis if you are dealing with multiple partners and multiple people in your life. Is you've got it's not that there's that jealousy doesn't exist or anything like that, but you have to have the conversations with yourself about why you are feeling the way you are feeling, why someone else's challenges or emotions are how they're reflecting on you and how you're dealing with the kind of process. And it's a little bit out of the way, but again, a lot of that emotion itself, I would say, is in the liminal because it does come and it goes and it can transition into something else very quickly and very easily.
Yeah, I saw that kind of, this is a side tangent, but I saw
Mhm.
recently somebody talking about the difference between emotions and feelings, and I was like,
Mm.
wow, I never thought of it that way. But emotions are like, more related to patterns of why
Hmm.
we feel the way we do, and then the feelings is like, where do you feel it in your body? What are you feeling in your body? So you're relating it back to the physicalness of it, because I can be feeling jittery in my body, and the emotion that's attached to that can be anxiety,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. So, I mean, but yes, I do think emotions are liminal and we're meant to move through them,
Hmm.
not sit in them.
Hmm.
So again, they're supposed to be transitory. And speaking of transitional energies, it also wants me, this brings me to bringing up how this all applies to us in queer spaces.
Hmm.
As
Absolutely.
queer witchy folk, I believe that queer people on so many levels have access to the magical energy of the liminal, of the transitory, of that magic, that vibe of not having to be in the binary, not having to be defined by this or that, but being aware of the spectrums of things and being aware that you can mix a little bit of this with a little bit of that and being in
Hmm.
the in-between energy, whether that's with sexuality or gender expressions or the way you identify in the world. There's a richness to seeing our genders and our sexualities as also very empowered by liminal space and liminal
Hmm.
magic, liminal energy.
The fluidity of all of that.
Right. And, I think some of the most magical people are those who are willing to transition because they know that's what's right for them. I think that taps them into such a powerful magic, the magic of authenticity, the power of knowing yourself
Hmm.
despite all odds and harnessing that and, teaching the world that you exist and that you're not going away and just because somebody's made uncomfortable by thinking outside of a freaking box
Hmm.
that we don't belong in anyway. My personal philosophy has always been that there is masculine energy, there is feminine energy, and there is neutral energy, and can be conduits for any and either or
Hmm.
of whatever combination. And I don't believe that we should be telling people what to believe and how to think or how to express themselves or that they need to be in one box or another. I think that we should just let people choose what their energy vibrational expression is, and how that aligns with, their cultural this or that. But like, I don't like labeling things as boy toys or girl toys or, boys' clothes and girls' clothes. I'm like, clothes are clothes. Fashion's fashion. And I love fabulousness all across the board. And I don't think gender defines who gets to feel good, look good,
Hmm.
express themselves, be artistic. And I just think such a very powerful energy to be like, you know what, the world told me that I was born this way, so I should channel feminine energy, but I was born to channel masculine energy, and that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
Or again, some combination of any of that. Like just being empowered enough to stand up and say, this is what's right for me. That's
Hmm.
one of the most powerful magics I've seen manifest in this world. And I think that is one of the reasons people are so afraid of it.
Hmm.
The people who
Absolutely.
don't want others to have power.
Hmm. And
Because
I
it's
know, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's just because it could be so empowering, and they don't want that.
Empowering, but also, again, that comes with its own set of terrifying. Again, neither you or I consider ourselves trans by any means, and forgive me if I'm saying this wrong. We don't identify on the trans spectrum, but both of our partners do. And so
And my best
sorry.
friend, like
Yeah,
I have a
yeah.
lot of I have a lot of trans people in my life,
Mhm.
and even though I don't say I have not transitioned myself, I do have an interesting relationship. Like I said, with the energy thing,
Mhm.
but also on a hormonal level, I have a condition that means that my body, which, TMI for anybody who doesn't really need
Mhm.
to know, but assigned female at birth, but hormonally I produce more testosterone than your average female body should or does. So hormonally I've always seen myself as non-binary,
Mhm.
um, which is in the trans umbrella. And that's also another thing that I wanted to talk about at some point.
Okay. No, absolutely. And again, I do not mean to
Yeah,
offend. I
no.
was totally trying to just kind of find the way to transition
Right.
into this into this topic. But no, I and again, I apologize. I do know you identify as non-binary and that kind of state. And again, being AFAB, I've also channeled masculine energy at different points through my life, and I still tend to. That's why I identify femme more than female, and
Mm-hmm.
with she they pronouns. But seeing as someone, as the spectrum of people in our lives, like I said, a
Yeah.
best friend, your partner, my partner, several other people in my life as well, watching them go from a state of being assigned something to being assigned something else is really empowering to watch
To
from that
assigning
liminal.
themselves what they feel aligns with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To being able to stand in their own feeling of, I feel like this, I look like this, but I feel like this is who I am. And there's so many levels of that spectrum
Yeah.
that not all trans people necessarily want to take hormones or do something that shifts that state, but that doesn't change the state of their being in there. And that's something that's really I've found very interesting as I've learned and met and lived with my partner for the last 8+ years, and watching all of our friendships and shifts and things as these things have happened in the last 8 years, 9 years, 10 years,
Yeah.
decades and stuff, and seeing these changes and seeing how that has empowered through that transition, through that transitional space, and seeing people come into their own, I think is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's been a blessing to be in the room where it happens, you know.
Yes.
Sorry about it. Breaking the song all the time, can't help it. But to be in the room to witness that process of self-actualization, of
Hmm.
self-realization for somebody that you love and also for yourself. And,
Hmm.
you know, it just, but the other thing, which kind of transitioning again into
Hmm.
another topic, is we actually got a really cool email from one of our listeners who was explaining in this beautiful, like she was telling us her story. One of the points that she made is that the I in LGBTQIA2S plus doesn't get talked about as much
Hmm.
as, and if you really want to be a great ally, a great queer person, a great human, it's time that we start educating ourselves and going a little bit beyond our little like middle school understanding of biology, of, you know, XX and XY chromosomes being
Hmm.
biologically this or biologically that, and realizing the intersex is possibly actually first of all, trans people are a very tiny percent of our population,
Hmm.
and intersex people are seen as a very tiny percent of our population. So why are we bullying them? Why are we beating up, you know,
Hmm.
like why are we punching down? Come on, people. Like we should be lifting this tiny percent up, and it doesn't hurt anybody to let them live their lives, live their best lives, how they, you know, what brings
Hmm.
them joy. But I think the existence of people who are on some level intersexed is higher than we think exists,
Hmm.
because
Absolutely.
it's not being talked about, it's not being as studied in the past. And one of this amazing listener, she gave us all kinds of links. She sent me a link to a site that does interviews of queer elders. Her name is Veronica, and we're going to share some of in the description for this
Hmm.
podcast. We're going
Yes.
to share some of these amazing links that she shared with us. But like, she was born intersexed, and she told us that she did give us permission to share her story a little bit, but
Hmm.
she had surgery as an infant on to fix right
Hmm.
that condition, and then she was never told. She was raised in a Christian fundamentalist kind of environment, and like, you know, they very suppressed the gender queerness that came out later, and she was bullied, of course, and her body wanted, when you hit puberty, she grew breasts, and you know, her body knew, and it's like her soul knew, but like her family suppressed it and like made that choice for her, and like she didn't know as a baby. I just wonder how prevalent intersex it is on some level. Even me, with my hormones being that I produce testosterone on a level that most AFABs don't. There's so many different iterations of ways people could be intersex.
Hmm. And I think that you're right in the sense that, especially in the era that we grew up in, the era that of prior generations before, it was not acceptable. So a choice was made for you before you had the option, and you didn't know. I think there probably is a great portion of people who are our age or older who don't know. The goal and the hope is that as more generations become aware, this will be a lesser thing, lesser in the sense that there won't be this stigma around making a choice for a child and letting
Right.
them be who they're going to be regardless of of the need to classify them into boy or girl.
And believing a child when they tell you that they know
Mm-hmm.
who they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about other people choosing this for them or influencing them. Let the child figure it out and then believe them when they tell you,
Mm-hmm.
because that has happened so often. And I just think it's important to let the kids
Mm-hmm.
be in that liminal space of figuring themselves out too.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing for that liminal space, allowing for the possibilities, even when it comes to gender expression and gender
Mm-hmm.
identity. So back to the idea of like we don't talk about the intersex stuff. We
Mm-hmm.
need to educate ourselves better. We need the world to understand, intersex exists. But I have now known two people who have transitioned in their lives who then later on had gotten testing done to find out that they are intersex.
Hmm.
So, like, have you ever thought about getting that tested? Like, genetically tested? Like,
I haven't.
I haven't either, but I think a lot of people don't question that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder what if that was something that that was more normal to do, to be like, oh, let's do a genetic testing to see if any kind of expression of intersex exists in your genetic makeup or I think it would maybe humanize, quantify that we're not really meant to be putting people in these very stiff
Mm-hmm.
ideas of what gender is. I just want whatever it is that we need, whatever scientific proof we need to show that it really is a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And, while there can be some extremes, most people exist somewhere in the liminal.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree. And I don't mind being in the liminal.
I
I
love the
love I
liminal.
love the idea of expression and choice and free will and the idea that my path can be divergent at any given point in time and the exploration of the unknown. I've always been Alice in Wonderland. I've always been curious. I've always wanted to know. And to me,
We're
the
okay
liminal
going
comes
down those
through.
rabbit holes.
Exactly. I will happily follow that rabbit down the rabbit hole. I can trace back to where I am now to a single Facebook quiz that I took in like probably 2007. I can see the trajectory of my path diverging and splitting because I decided to share the answer to a quiz on Facebook with one person. And that
Interesting,
opened my
interesting.
world to a whole different place that it would have gone, or I know it would have gone if I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't. This cool idea of where things go and working in the liminal and being able to have those who are more naturally living in the liminal, in those trans and intersex and fluid and
Non-binaries
non-binary
and
liminal space bodies that
yes.
connect deeper to it. I think it's fascinating and incredible. And
So yeah, sincerely thank you, V, for
yes,
sharing your story with us. And I'm going to share the website that is collecting our queer elder stories. She sent up me also a link to an interview. I think that interview is either on the website or will be at some point on that
hmm,
website. Like instead of an audiobook or a library book, go check out somebody's story
yes, I'll be
because
diving into those.
right? Yes. And also there's so much information out there. She was amazing. She sent a whole bunch of links about the deep dive she went down when she got
Hmm.
diagnosed as intersex and she was telling us, I'm coming out of the closet as intersex now. I've been trans for so long and I'm a lesbian and I have this wife, just like, but now I'm coming out of the closet again. It's layers.
Uh-huh.
But it's really cool that I just really appreciate that perspective. Like, yeah, you're right. We don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about the liminal space. It exists. It's
Hmm.
there. Whether we notice it or not, it exists, but like try
Right.
noticing it a little bit more.
Hmm.
Try leaning into your liminal spaces. Where are you liminal? What about your attraction to people? Is it based on a gender binary or is it a little bit liminal? Is your sexuality liminal? Is your gender expression liminal in some way? How does your energy kind of mix and go in between two ideas? Or, how do you harness the possibilities with before you make the decisions that
Hmm.
instead of being ultra decisive or completely stagnated by indecision, how do you harness the power and magic of the in between?
Hmm. And I would say that make sure your magic, use the liminal in your magic. And if you want ideas, I mean, everything you do, practically speaking, has liminal magic aspects to it. Cutting and clearing. You're disconnecting the old, you're making way for the new. That point in between is liminal magic. Manifestation. the idea of abundance manifestation or bringing something into your life that is you actively working in the liminal spaces to attract things to you. Divination, we talked about this earlier. It's seeking the answers from something else, from a higher power, from an entity, from an ancestor, from artwork,
Yeah.
inspiration.
Liminal
Even,
spirits decks are really
yeah,
cool. Like War
there's
Tempest Zakroff, one of my favorite artists, made a liminal spirits deck. It's one of my most favorite ones.
right. Also, spirit quests or spirit dreams, where you are actively disconnecting your body for a mental journey through the spirit realm for guidance, for answers, or offering to the ancestors. All those kinds of things. If you've done any sort of spirit journey, that's also dealing and working in liminal. So you've got
Mm-hmm.
the power and the magic in it.
You've
It's
got the power.
yes, but by acknowledging that liminal space that you're working in will boost your magic and the effects of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the cool thing about the idea of transition magic.
And if you are a trans listener, just know that I think you're one of the most magic people on this earth, and we are grateful that you exist. And keep on keeping on, and I will fight for your right to
Absolutely.
hold that power in this world.
Absolutely.
So we
Every
love
single
you.
time.
Yeah.
So much love.
Yeah. Well, I just, with all of that said, as we transition, we're going to just give you a thank you for being our listeners for the Queer Witch Project. If you like what you're hearing or you want to share your story with us,
Please.
feel free, give us some thumbs up and 5 stars or 10 stars or however many stars or they let you give us and leave us comments. We love hearing from you.
And if there's a topic you want to know more about or an episode topic you'd like to suggest, contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle @queerwitchproject. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself and love rebelliously.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.